Who is a bad guy in history who actually wasn't a bad guy? A dingo really ate her baby. In Sweden, a man was arrested for the murder of his wife, but she was actually killed by a moose. They thought he had used a lawnmower to kill her because of the damages on her body. It took a long time for them to write him off as a suspect, and it ruined his life. Edit. Sources in English are hard to find, but there is a book about it in Swedish called På Sannolika SKL and some documentary. Very few English articles about it, but his name is Ingemar Westland if anyone wants to try find something. Holy hell. How does a moose inflict damage that would make people think a fucking lawnmower did that? Edit. I know mooses, meese, are huge, but in my mind they can only inflict blunt force trauma, while lawnmower would leave cuts. Moose are really dangerous, large, territorial, and aggressive. Guess a combo of goring and trampling. There are signs up in the Adirondacks here in NY warning people to keep away from them, especially mothers with calves. It's kind of like the bison at Yellowstone, and such people think plant eater peaceful creature who would love to take a selfie with me, and boom. Same, Teresa Moose mom who occasionally treks down to a popular hiking spot in our area, and when she does it's on the news. I am more worried about moose than I am bears. Same, simply for the fact that bears, except polars, tend to be wary of humans. On the other hand, moose do not give a duck at all. Also, like polar bears, the most dangerous thing about moose is that playing dead does not work on them. They'll keep stomping humans even after they've died, just for the fun of it. They're mean, and when I say mean, I mean they are bad, Jim. There isn't a moose alive who hasn't graduated magna cum laude from the Sauron Institute for the Criminally Vicious. Moose are quite possibly the most dangerous thing you see in the wild, and if you do see them, keep your distance. If you see a baby and you don't see its mother, do not wait to find out where she is. Just duck and bolt. In Braveheart, William Wallace gets betrayed by Robert the Bruce, which never happened. He was loyal to the end. That movie made me so angry. I grew up on it, and loved it for what I assumed was a historically accurate portrayal. Not only is the movie absurdly inaccurate, the real history is arguably more interesting than the movie. There was no need for artistic restructuring. They could have just dramatized the actual events and it would have been a great movie. My favorite detail about Braveheart is the Battle of Stirling Bridge, where William Wallace famously used a bridge to negate the English numerical advantage, think 300 and the hot gates. So of course the movie showed the battle on a giant, empty field with nary a bridge in sight. It's a toss-up between this and the fact that Braveheart wasn't even Wallace's title that takes the cake for extremely stupid Hollywood biopic inaccuracies. Even as a 12-year-old obsessed with this movie at the time, the bridge thing really irked me lol. The movie's inaccuracies overall didn't bug me, because the movie starts out with the Scottish narrator basically saying, yeah, everyone else is gonna call me a liar, but here's my version of the story. So I saw the movie as basically the biased and mythologized and exaggerated bragging around a campfire version of William Wallace. That said, even the tall tale bullshit version of the Battle of Stirling Bridge could have put an actual ducking bridge somewhere in the scene. According to one of the crew, the director said the bridge got in the way, to which a Scot responded that the English thought so too. Jesus was given vinegar to drink by the Roman. It turns out that the Roman military provided their troops with a water-vinegar mixture to drink because it helped them replenish their salt levels after perspiring. So, the only thing the Roman did was to offer Jesus a sip of his own drink rather than making him drink vinegar as punishment or a dig. Richard Jewell, security guard at the Atlanta Olympic who was blamed for the bombing. He was mocked for moving in with mother. He and his mom did an interview on Oprah some time later. They said it was because his mom was sick and he was taking care of her. It's really not that uncommon for middle-aged people to move in with aging parents. BTW, his mom is still alive last I checked. She is still friends with his lawyer and their children. She is apparently a very nice woman. Oh man, my family still thinks I'm a failure cause I was my mom's caregiver for her final years. They never called, and never visited cause you seem to have things under control. After 5 years of emphysema, she took a turn for the worse and developed lung cancer, from which she passed a few months post-diagnosis. Then it was my fault cause I didn't catch it sooner. A year later and I no longer know my own purpose cause being a caretaker was who I was as a person, and they see me as a failure, even though they didn't visit or call her on her deathbed. But it's my fault they didn't do that. Duck people. Machiavelli. One of the most honest dudes in history, and his name is instead synonymous with villainy. For real, the prince was basically his "please let me return to Florence my exile, I can be really really useful." Or else he was being sarcastic. Or both. With a dash of "I really prefer a republic, but if we need a monarch to unite all of Italy against our national enemies, he might as well know what he's doing to do it." Niccolò Machiavelli. Machiavelli didn't invent the idea of lying or ruthlessness. He made an observation about what worked and tried to get a new gig. Now his name is synonymous with heartless manipulator. He didn't invent the game, but he did write the manual. Captain Hazelwood of the Exxon Valdez. He is often pictured on the helm of the Exxon swaying drunkenly going full throttle into the reef talking like a pirate. What actually happened? Valdez's critical navigation equipment was out of commission, fax sent to Exxon and Exxon told them to sail instead. Coast Guard budget cuts removed vessel tracking in the area. Green and tired crew was on duty, request was made to relief crew. It was denied. XO, who was on con at the time, was inexperienced on the passage and neither requested pilotage. While Hazelwood did drink that day, he was not in command of the con at the time and was in his quarters resting. Hazelwood made a comment that he needed a drink because of how upset he was over the situation. Exxon's PR paid off the media to blame Hazelwood. However, Hazelwood was charged with only one charge, which was for pollution. He proved he was not a drunkard and retained his captain's license, even getting offers to sail again, which he turned down. The real villains are mass media, false news, and comedians, but Exxon's PRS spending power to keep the blame off them. Hazelwood passed away last year after the info of the spill. Random fact: the Valdez sailed until 2008 under different name Oriental Nicety. Very interesting. Read between this and McDonald's coffee lady, I'm noticing a pattern. If you get a chance, check out a podcast called You're Wrong About. In the film Titanic, the character Murdoch killed someone, took bribes, and generally came across as a right shit. He was a real-life person who was actually a hero and saved many lives. His living relatives were so disgusted that the VP of Fox traveled to Del Beatty to personally apologize and presented a $5,000 donation to Del Beatty High School to boost the school's William Murdoch Memorial Prize. That movie's initial gross was over $1.8 billion. Donating $5,000 is like the average us man giving them a dime and saying "my bad." Richard Jewell, initially lauded as a hero and a brave man who ran towards the bomb to help, then the FBI and media turned on him and accused him of doing the bombing himself because he was actually just as ducking outlandishly brave and ran toward the bomb to help people. They took his truck for evidence. He had to go into hiding, made a villain by incompetent people 4 years, finally exonerated, and dies shortly afterward. This very website almost did the same to someone after the Boston Marathon bombing. Edit. Sick of individual replies to people who comment before reading the thread. Sunil Tripathi was already missing for a month by the time of the bombing. He was found several days later in a river, having died by suicide. They have never definitively said whether he was even still alive by the time of the bombing. Yes, he did commit suicide, but saying it was a direct result is speculation. Has this website not hurt his family enough without you people passing off rumors as fact? If Reddit had been around for Richard Jewell, it would have 100% jumped on the bandwagon of hate. The McDonald's coffee lady, the woman who sued McDonald's after she spilled coffee on her lap, received third-degree burns in her pelvic area. She was hospitalized for 8 days and required a couple years of rehabilitation. The media jumped on the story, making it a poster case for frivolous lawsuits. Edit. Corrected typos. I vividly remember this story. It was so sad, tbh. At first I thought it was stupid too, but then I read she had severe burns and all. She really wasn't overreacting. For a long time my parents loved stopping at McDonald's solely because the coffee was piping hot. Once that happened to that poor lady and they brought the temp down, they stopped drinking coffee in McDonald's, and every time we'd stop they'd complain about the lady who overreacted and it messed up their coffee time. My parents are Mexican, so they heard this on Spanish news, mind you. Anyway, once I grew up I read the story and it was horrific what she went through. I then explained to my mom and she promptly changed the way she felt about it. Yeah, the media made it seem frivolous on all ends. But the coffee really was way too hot. And the lady just wanted her medical bills paid. McDonald's previously did pay claims like this, but got tired of them and wanted the court to settle it. In the end, McDonald's made the company hired to train the staff to pay for it, as they trained the employees wrong. But the media loved making the woman look advantageous and McDonald's a victim.